What happens when a billionaire sees his struggling employee feeding the disabled? What will he do when he uncovers her quiet acts of kindness? And how will this moment change her life forever? Get ready for a story of generosity, a powerful offer, and an unexpected twist. Clara Patrick was a junior customer service agent at Lawson and Company, a major firm in Abuja. Every day after work, she used what little money she had to buy food at a local market. Bread, rice, whatever she could carry, she gave it away to the disabled people she passed on her way home. She didn't have much herself, but she made sure others weren't forgotten. Clara never asked for anything in return. She just wanted to help. Day after day, she showed up with food and a smile. The people on that street grew to expect her kindness. But to Clara, it was nothing special. She was simply doing what felt right. One evening, as she crouched to hand a packet of rice to a man in a wheelchair, a small child nearby tugged at her sleeve. He had no shoes and his eyes were sunken. Clara smiled and gave him her last 2 bananas. "God bless you," the boy whispered. Clara blinked back tears. This was why she kept doing it. Because kindness, no matter how small, mattered. She walked home in the dim light, her worn-out shoes slapping against the pavement. Her stomach rumbled, but she didn't mind. A warm feeling settled in her chest, stronger than hunger. That night, she ate only a slice of bread and a cup of tea. Her money was gone, but her soul felt full. At the office, Clara was punctual. Always the first to arrive and the last to leave. She rarely spoke unless spoken to. Her cubicle was tucked away in a corner, surrounded by towering stacks of documents. She typed with steady hands, resolved to make each task perfect. Her manager barely noticed. Most people didn't. Until that night. That same evening, Richard Lawson, the no-nonsense CEO of Lawson and Company, sat in traffic. The streets were packed. Hawkers sold snacks, disabled people lined the sidewalks. Then he saw her. A woman in a red shirt and black skirt weaving through the crowd with a bag full of food. She handed out meals with calm purpose. Richard narrowed his eyes. She looked familiar. When he realized it was Clara, his own employee, something shifted in him. She wasn't rich. She wasn't famous. Yet here she was giving selflessly to people who had nothing to offer in return. For years, Richard had focused only on numbers and deals. Now, watching Clara, he couldn't understand why someone with so little gave so much. He had seen charity before, but never like this. Her care was real. Pure. And it made him question his own values. The image of Clara handing food to the disabled stayed with him all night. He tossed and turned, unable to sleep. He stared at the ceiling, wondering what drove her. What kind of heart kept giving when there was nothing left? At work, Clara kept to herself. She was shy, quiet, and often overlooked. While others bragged or played office politics, Clara focused on her duties. She wasn't trying to stand out. She just wanted peace and the chance to do some good, no matter how small. But Richard began paying attention. He noticed her diligence, her quiet focus. He started talking to her more often, watching her at lunch. The office noticed, too. Whispers spread. Why was the strict CEO so interested in Clara? Some assumed it was temporary. A passing curiosity. Others thought she had somehow won his favor. But no one guessed the truth, that Richard was seeing Clara for who she truly was, for the first time. And it stirred something inside him. He started reviewing her performance files. He saw glowing reports buried under paperwork. He noted her initiative, her creativity, her accuracy. And above all, her humility. Clara never asked for recognition. She just did her job. One rainy evening, Richard waited for the storm to ease before heading out. He planned to offer Clara a ride home. When she wasn't in the office, he figured she might be at her usual spot. He drove to the area and saw her again, handing out food despite the cold and wet weather. He rolled down his window. "Clara, do you need a ride home?" Startled, Clara hesitated. Then nodded. "I'd appreciate that." In the warmth of the car, Richard asked gently, "Tell me about yourself." "I'm an only child. My parents are retired and live in the village. I'm here trying to make a life." Richard was quiet. He had just seen a woman with almost nothing give everything she could. It stayed with him. From that night, Richard began assigning Clara more complex tasks. Projects usually meant for higher roles. Her coworkers whispered, confused and jealous. Clara, nervous but determined, rose to the challenge. Then came the big test, presenting a major proposal to the company board. Clara stood in front of them, hands shaking but voice steady. Her presentation was sharp, confident, clear. When she finished, the board nodded in approval. Richard stayed silent. Later, in his office, he told her, "You did well. But this is just the beginning. You're not ready yet. More is coming." Clara trusted him. She kept working. Months passed. Richard had prepared the board for what was next. He smiled in his office, thinking, she gave when no one was watching. Now, I'll make sure she never lacks again. On a Friday morning, Clara was called to the boardroom. She had no idea why. Richard stood waiting, serious but proud. "Clara," he said. "After careful consideration, we are appointing you Chief Operating Officer of Lawson and Company." Gasps. Shock. Clara froze. "You will oversee daily operations and help lead this company forward," he continued. "You'll receive a home, a car, and everything you need." Clara's eyes filled with tears. She had only wanted to help others. She never imagined this. But she understood, this wasn't just for her. She could now help so many more. She told her parents. They were overwhelmed. Her mother cried. Her father said, "God has blessed you. We'll come thank the man who helped you." Amara, Clara's former supervisor, sat in her office staring at her monitor. The news of Clara's promotion spread like wildfire, and it stung. Her fingers trembled as she clicked through emails. 6 years of hard work, and she was bypassed by someone barely in the system. Jealousy festered. During lunch, murmurs filled the break room. "Can you believe she got COO?" one whispered. "There must be something going on," said another. Amara sat quietly in the corner, fueling the flames. Later that evening, Amara paced in her apartment. Clara couldn't be that perfect. No one was. She picked up her phone and dialed an old contact, a private investigator. "I need you to find out everything about a woman named Clara Patrick," she said. "Address, history, daily movements. Everything." The investigator began his work immediately, tailing Clara after hours. He expected something shady. But each evening he followed her, he found the same thing: Clara feeding people, organizing training sessions, comforting the forgotten. He reported back, confused. "She's clean," he said. "She's helping people. With no profit." Amara didn't accept it. "Dig deeper," she snapped. "Nobody's that selfless." The investigator complied. He checked bank records, spoke to neighbors, looked into her family. Nothing. Clara's life was plain, honest, and full of quiet compassion. Frustrated, Amara decided to twist the narrative. If she couldn't find dirt, she'd create a shadow. She tipped off a few reporters with a fabricated story about Clara using company funds for a personal charity. The trap was set. And Clara was walking right into it. The next day unfolded like any other. Clara wore her favorite blue blouse and gray skirt, packed her usual modest lunch, and smiled at the security guard as she walked into the building. But something felt off. People were staring more than usual. The usual greetings were colder, more hesitant. Something had changed. Later that evening, as Clara drove her official car out of Lawson and Company's gates, something strange happened. A crowd had gathered outside. Before she could react, reporters swarmed her vehicle. Cameras flashed. Microphones shoved through her open window. "Clara, is it true you stole company funds to start your charity center?" one shouted. "Did Richard Lawson know about this?" another barked. "Are you using Lawson and Company's money for personal gain?" a third asked. Clara froze. Her heart pounded in her chest. Her hands trembled on the steering wheel. She couldn't breathe. She hadn't told anyone about the Rise Above Disability Empowerment Center. She had built it in silence, away from the spotlight. Now the very thing she cherished most was being twisted against her. People gathered around. Some coworkers stepped outside. Others gasped. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Some pulled out their phones and started filming. From the top floor window, Richard saw the chaos. He saw Clara, trapped in a storm of cameras and questions. His gut tightened. "What the hell is going on?" he muttered. In the car, Clara gripped the door handle and slowly stepped out. Her knees wobbled beneath her. Her face was pale, her eyes glistening. The reporters surged closer. The noise was overwhelming. "I didn't steal anything," she said softly. "I built that center with my own money. I only wanted to help." The crowd hushed for a moment. The weight of her words hung in the air. But then the shouting resumed. From inside the building, several employees watched with wide eyes. Some looked guilty. Others looked entertained. Richard rushed to the elevator. "Clear the driveway," he told security over the phone. But by the time he got downstairs, Clara had already driven off, tears streaming down her face. That night, Clara locked herself in her apartment. Her phone rang non-stop. News alerts lit up the screen. Headlines screamed, "COO embroiled in charity scandal?" Who is Clara Patrick really? She curled up on the couch and sobbed. The center she had built with her heart was being dragged through the mud. The people she cared for might lose everything because of lies. And Richard, would he believe them too? In his own apartment, Richard was pacing. His team confirmed the story had come from an anonymous source. The timing, the detail, none of it made sense. He had seen Clara's honesty. He had seen her heart. But still, he knew protocol. The board would demand action. The next morning, the boardroom was tense. Journalists were camped outside. Richard stood at the head of the table. Clara sat silently to one side. "Clara," Richard said carefully, "you are hereby suspended pending investigation." The room was silent. Clara's lips parted, but no words came out. She stared at him, hurt, confused. He didn't meet her eyes. "This is not a verdict," he added. "It's a step we must take, for the company, and to protect your name. Let us do this properly." Clara nodded numbly. She gathered her things and walked out. No one stopped her. No one spoke. Over the next 2 weeks, Clara kept to herself. She shut off most calls, avoided social media, and focused solely on her small center. Her days were spent helping disabled youth craft handbags or learn how to type with adaptive keyboards. But even in the warmth of the center, she carried a heaviness in her heart. Richard tried checking in on her. He called once, then twice, but her responses were brief and distant. "I'm fine," she said. Just staying focused. But he knew she wasn't. He had seen how the scandal had shaken her. He had watched her walk out of the office like a ghost of the vibrant woman she once was. And it haunted him. Finally, one evening, he drove to the Rise Above Disability Empowerment Center. He didn't call ahead. He just needed to see her. From the street, he watched through the window. Clara was kneeling beside a young girl, showing her how to thread a needle. She smiled and laughed with the girl, even as shadows lingered in her eyes. Richard didn't go in. But he made a decision that night. He returned to the office with fire in his veins. He assembled a private team, legal, compliance, internal audit. "Find the source of the leak," he ordered. "Get to the bottom of the accusation. Leave no stone unturned." Days passed. Leads surfaced. Security logs revealed a copy of Clara's personnel file was accessed by Amara 3 days before the scandal broke. Email traces linked her to a known media outlet. Slowly, the truth came into focus. 3 weeks later, Richard called another board meeting. This time, he came prepared with a full report. "All allegations against Clara Patrick are false," he said. "She did not use company funds. Her charity was self-funded and documented. The real source of the scandal, Amara, a former supervisor, has been terminated." He didn't stop there. He held a press conference. Clara's name was cleared publicly. He praised her contributions and explained her center's work. "This company stands behind good people," he said. "And Clara Patrick is the best of us." Clara didn't know all this was happening. She only found out when her phone lit up with hundreds of messages. Her face, once plastered with scandal, now beamed on screens under headlines like "Innocent and Inspiring: The Truth About Clara Patrick." That evening, Richard invited her to a quiet restaurant. When she arrived, he stood and pulled out her chair. "Clara," he said softly, "I never stopped believing in you. I had to let the process work, for your sake. I didn't want this to seem like favoritism. But now that the truth is out, I need you to know how proud I am of you." Clara's hands trembled. "You believed in me, even when I doubted myself." He handed her an envelope. She opened it slowly. Inside, her reinstatement letter. Then another. A letter from the board approving monthly funding to expand her center. Tears welled in Clara's eyes. "Richard, I don't know what to say." "You don't need to," he said gently. "You've already said it with your actions. You've changed lives. Including mine." He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a velvet box, and opened it. "Clara Patrick," he said, voice steady, "will you marry me?" She gasped, hand over her mouth, tears flowing freely. Then she nodded. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." As they embraced, the restaurant quieted into a warm applause. A few patrons clapped discreetly, others smiled as they watched a story of redemption and love unfold before their eyes. Richard held her hands firmly, as if promising to never let go again. Just then, Clara's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello, is this Clara Patrick? A calm, official-sounding voice asked. Yes, this is Clara. I'm calling from the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities. The president watched your story on television. He would like to meet you in person. Clara blinked, stunned. The president? Yes, ma'am. He was deeply moved by your courage, your service, and your impact. You are being invited to the State House for an official commendation. Richard, who had been listening, leaned in. You're going to meet the president, Clara. The next morning, Clara called her parents. Mom, Dad, I'm reinstated. Richard proposed. And, the president wants to meet me. Her mother screamed. Wait, let me put you on speaker. Her father's voice came through, thick with emotion. The president? And Richard proposed? Child, tell us everything. Clara recounted it all, the betrayal, the suspension, the vindication, the engagement, and the call from the presidential villa. Her parents listened in awe. Her father said, the Bible says, your gift will make room for you and bring you before great men. We are proud of you, Clara. So proud. Her mother added playfully, now, when are you bringing this young man to meet us, eh? Clara laughed. Very soon, Mama. Very soon. 2 days later, Clara arrived at Lawson and Company to resume her duties. As she stepped out of her car, 2 sleek black SUVs pulled up. Men in dark suits emerged, presidential security. Richard met her at the door. They're here to take you to the villa, he said with a smile. It's time. Clara, dressed in a graceful cream gown with a subtle green sash, nodded and stepped into the vehicle. At the presidential villa, she was led into a grand hall filled with officials, journalists, and members of the National Assembly. When the president entered, the room stood still. Clara Patrick, he said with a proud smile, your work has not gone unnoticed. You have inspired a nation through your humility and dedication to humanity. And today, we honor that. He placed a ceremonial sash across her shoulders and pinned a golden medal to her chest. Cameras flashed. Applause erupted. But that's not all, the president continued. I am nominating you for Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. You will be a voice for millions. And your Senate confirmation will be swift. Gasps. Clara's breath caught in her throat. Richard squeezed her hand gently from behind. You earned this, he whispered. Clara stepped forward, heart pounding. Mr. President, I am deeply honored. I will serve with the same heart that began this journey, one committed to those the world often overlooks. Thank you for believing in me. The crowd rose in standing ovation. Over the following weeks, Clara began her new role as minister. Her first acts included launching national vocational programs for disabled persons, mobile clinics for rural women, and scholarship grants for underserved children. She worked late, traveled often, and never forgot where she started. In the evenings, she returned home to Richard, now her fiancé, who supported her tirelessly. Wedding plans were underway, but their shared mission came first. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Richard said, You've changed the nation, Clara. And you've changed me. Clara leaned her head on his shoulder. We changed each other. And we're just getting started. Their love, forged in quiet deeds and tested by fire, now stood as a beacon, not just for romance, but for what kindness, sacrifice, and integrity could achieve. Clara's rise wasn't just a success story. It was a revolution of heart. No act of love is ever wasted. No life is too small to spark change. And sometimes, it takes just one quiet soul to stir the conscience of a nation. The end.